Hi, I'm Kevin May, the Editor-in-Chief of PhocusWire. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in and listening to this discussion. I'm going to be talking to David Woolenberg. He is the CEO at Duetto. David, thank you very much for joining me, Kevin, here at PhocusWire. It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well, Kevin. Thank you very much for having me today. I look forward to our discussion.
Okay, you're relatively new to the role, so I'm going to give a little bit of background about you. So you are the CEO, but you joined Duetto in 2018. Years are important in our discussion, as we'll come on to in the end. So you joined as the Chief Revenue Officer.
Yes.
You were promoted to President and Chief Operating Officer a year later after a period of record growth. Congratulations, that's great. Prior to Duetto, you spent 15 years at Digital River, which is a global e-commerce solutions company that perhaps many people in the travel industry have not heard of. You were actually named the Global Gaming Business 25 People to Watch in 2020, which sounds like some accolade, I think. But you became CEO of Duetto in January 2020, which is interesting timing, to say the least.
Perfect time.
Just 2 months before we all got hit by the pandemic. Let me start off then, David. I mean, how did you have to adapt your kind of personal professional ambitions to the new reality, first of all?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, yes, I mean, I became CEO in January of 2020. Timing is everything in life, but you don't really get to choose the environment you get to operate in. You have to adapt and react effectively. So, on a personal basis, I believe in the company. We have a fantastic team. I had tremendous support, both from, my colleagues and our board. And I just got focused on making sure that we were, confronting the reality of what we were facing. I knew it was going to be a big crisis. I certainly had no experience in dealing in a pandemic, nor did anyone else. Yeah. And so you really are having to kind of follow your instincts and solicit advice from the people around you and rely on your teammates. And I think most importantly, is really setting a strategy that encompass not only our company and our employees and making sure that they're okay going through this, but really importantly, our customers. And so making sure that we were meeting them where they were on what we knew was going to be a very difficult journey.
How did Duetto kind of adapt its product offering during this? We're over 2 years into this now.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we were very quick to observe is that same time last year, it wasn't going to be a very helpful metric for our customers. And so one of the great things about Duetto's application is that we have the ability and flexibility to be able to adapt our algorithm and our tools to meet the short-term demands as well. So we put some changes in place, adapted the algorithm to look at shorter-term look-back timeframes, because that really helped give our customers visibility and understand how to price and forecast, especially within that 30-day booking window, which was becoming the norm very quickly. Same day was becoming the norm very quickly. So I think that was really helpful in terms of how we use our application. And the kind of foundations of Duetto are really about giving our customers control combined with automation, meaning that they can use sophisticated strategies, automate those strategies, but also have sort of a mixed mode where they can also adapt and tailor unique strategies to the things they want to focus on and maybe have a more manual touch as well. So the combination of all those things, great reporting, great BI, I think really helped our customers adapt as best as we could, given that every day was sort of a new adventure as we were getting into this pandemic.
Let me ask you on something you mentioned there very briefly. I mean, you talked about the 30-day window. Do you think that's going to switch back to what it was before, or is that already happening?
I think it's still very prominent, but I think we're seeing it right now. The numbers are coming down. We're seeing demand pick up. Web traffic is picking up. Interest in travel is continuing to climb. And I think it kind of has to change. I only know from personal experience. I have a business trip coming up, and like many people, I waited until somewhat more the last minute, not quite the last minute, but a few weeks. And it was a little more challenging to find a hotel room at the places I normally stay in San Francisco. And so I think as people get accustomed to getting back to travel, particularly business travelers, whereas you could have probably done it a couple of days before and been fine if you're going to a major city, I think now people are going to have to start thinking a little further ahead. Certainly we see that in leisure travel with people planning bigger trips. But I think it's going to start affecting business travel more, which was maybe getting comfortable with those shorter windows during the pandemic.
Yeah, indeed. I read somewhere probably last year, Gartner or something like that, where they were saying that there's been more acceleration in digital in the last 2 years than in the previous 10. And that's society-wide, which is really interesting. I think it's just because we've been forced to use Zoom as we are now and just communicate digitally. But I wonder, what would you say the pandemic has done to accelerate tech adoption in hospitality specifically?
There's a couple of things I would cite. One is, I think everyone in hospitality tech is probably seeing this, is that really forward-thinking companies use the downtime that we had to upgrade systems. We've certainly seen that in our business, but I know speaking to other CEOs in hospitality tech that they're seeing that as well. And so the idea of digital kind of transformation goes beyond hospitality, and it's going to be a trend that's going to happen for a long time. But particularly in hospitality, you do have a lot of legacy systems. And in our space within revenue management, it's still relatively early in the adoption of systems like Duetto. There are still a number of hotels, and it's not an indictment of those hotels, but there's still a number of hotel groups that are managing things on spreadsheets still. And that's something that's a huge opportunity for us. And it's a huge opportunity for people who are trying to manage in a very dynamic environment on a spreadsheet, which is very static.
I think it would be safe to say that, from day one of Duetto's kind of history, you've tried to change the conversation from revenue management to revenue strategy. I'm constantly told off whenever I speak to your colleagues for calling it revenue management. I should call it revenue strategy. Why do you think that's so important, David?
Yeah, well, first of all, I hope my colleagues aren't telling you off, but
they mean it in a playful way. They mean it, I can assure you of that.
Yeah, and I think that if you think about when Duetto started, sort of a classic founder story. Our founders were working within a casino resort and were using some of the tools that were there, and they were dissatisfied and they wanted to do something different. They thought they could do it better. And I think the idea of revenue management is really about managing to a forecast. And while we still take into account forecasts, we have forecasting tools within our application. We think that customers, our hotels, are leaving money on the table. So revenue strategy is really about maximizing revenue and profit and making sure that you're capitalizing on the changes in demand, changes in events, changes on different factors. And so that instead of working to hit a forecast, which is a wonderful thing, we all want to hit our forecasts and meet our objectives. But when there are opportunities to exceed that forecast, as an example, or to flex rates in a way dynamically that allow you to capitalize on changing demand in the changing environment, we believe that our platform has an advantage for those that use it.
Do you think hotels get the difference generally and are embracing it over time?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I can't speak for other systems, but I think we've been very fortunate in our history that the people that use Duetto tend to stay with us. We have world-class renewal rates, which means is a great indicator of people being satisfied with the application. And I think people have an affinity not only for how we kind of execute against our philosophy on revenue strategy, but they also have an affinity for the people that we put in front of them to make sure that they're being successful with our application. I mean, that's really something that we believe deeply in, is marrying this world-class technology with world-class hospitality professionals and technology professionals, and making sure that we're, part of the journey that our customers go through. So we've been really fortunate and that our customers have an affinity for our brand. They have an affinity for our philosophy. They buy into our philosophy when they buy Duetto, and that has served us very well. I think, having a differentiated approach is how we broke into the market, and we will continue to have that. So I think people who use us get it. And I think as we're seeing more and more customers are signing on, I think people are craving something new in the market and something innovative, which we bring to the table.
If you could come up with the number one tip that you'd give hoteliers to change that mindset that we've been discussing, what would you say?
Well, listen, we can't change the hearts and minds of everyone we speak to. And I think, one of the things we try not to do is when we meet with a customer, we don't try to kind of cram this down their throat. What we really start with is what problems are they trying to solve? Because ultimately, in any kind of relationship, there's no one size fits all. Everyone, maybe they rhyme, but everyone has a different thing that they're trying to deal with. Some of our customers spend 5, 6, 7 hours a day building spreadsheets and reports. And when they look at scoreboard, they say, wow, I can do what I was doing in hours a day, I can do in seconds. That's really valuable to me. I get time back to focus on things that are more strategic. Other customers are having revenue managers manage, a dozen or dozens of hotels, and being able to scale that requires automation. Doesn't mean the machines are taking over. It means you can automate things that you can automate, and you can manually control the things that you want to focus on. So I think that we're not trying to convert everyone the same way. We're really trying to meet them where they are. And I think that's the mark of a great client-facing organization. And I think it's the mark of having a value-based approach to selling your product.
I said at the very beginning, David, that years were going to be important. And that's because 2022, it's the 10th anniversary of the organization. What plans do you and Duetto have to mark this occasion?
Well, I'm a very upbeat and positive person. So my hope is, the first thing is, that we can get together in person as a team more frequently. We're certainly seeing some of that in our regional offices, and we have little events here and there. And we're having our team members that are customer facing, we're seeing more and more in-person meetings there, which I think is really positive. So I'm very hopeful for that. We just had our annual kickoff event, which we did virtually this year. We did it virtually last year. It was great. But I'm very hopeful that we can have an all company meeting in person this year or very early next year, but we'll see. Given what's going on in the world with Ukraine, which our hearts go out to the Ukrainian people. It's just a very difficult situation, but more importantly, that's something that Duetto has been very thoughtful about. I can't take full credit for it because I inherited it, but I try to foster it in every chance I can. Trying to do things in the communities, hotel-based charities or hospitality-based charities in the different regions that we operate in, trying to do great things with our people who want to get out and serve the community. We try to do that as a mark of our tenure. And then, of course, we plan little celebrations here and there throughout the year to get people together and do social events and try to connect. It's another year. Yes, it's a big mark. 10 years is great, but we're going to keep our heads down and keep operating the business and keep trying to build on the success we've had thus far.
Certainly, I can remember a number of occasions. Your predecessor, Patrick Bosworth, was always pretty clued on what were some of the important milestones that were taking place in the industry at a given time. What would you say have been some of the biggest industry milestones that Duetto has observed over the past 10 years?
Yeah, I think if you were going to pick one, it would be difficult, but I'll cite several. One of the biggest things that we're seeing, and we sort of take it for granted now, but the widespread adoption of cloud computing. So Duetto is a multi-tenant software as a service application. So we're very unique in the industry. We were, one of the first and probably the most scaled and most successful in that kind of has that characteristic. But that has been a huge opportunity for us. But it's also, we'd be remiss if we were taking for granted that people sort of expect that now. And I think future investments in the space are going to be really contingent on companies like Duetto, where you have a single version of the application that gets updated very frequently, is in near real time, and allows people to adapt to a very dynamic environment. You spoke about it before, but digital transformation is something that most companies have as something that CEOs have on their list of things that they need to do. And it's not just in revenue management software, of course, it's things like Zoom and different applications that we use to operate the business. But I think that has been a huge mark for us. And then, it sounds a little self-serving, but I think it's true, is we've built a fantastic culture at this company. And we've really benefited from people having an affinity for the Duetto brand, for our philosophy, how we do business. And I think those have been important milestones. It wasn't like that from the beginning. People said, when our founders first came to market, people said they were crazy and that this isn't the way people are going to do business. And sure enough, step by step, we've made it happen. So I think all of those are important milestones. And I think we're just getting started, to be honest.
How does it feel to run a 10-year-old hospitality SaaS company, though?
Well, I mean, if I'm being honest, I don't think about it that much as the 10-year mark. I take a lot of information from reading, and one of the books that I really like is Good to Great by Jim Collins. And that book is a great business book because it's based on a lot of data. And one of the data points in there is that a lot of the companies that we consider great and that we admire today didn't really hit their stride until 8, 9, 10, 12 years into their life cycle. And so I take a lot of heart in that kind of data, in that I really truly believe we're just getting started. We're winning more business than we ever have. We obviously still have work to do. We're never done. We don't have a perfect solution. And our customers and our colleagues within Duetto make sure to remind me that, with some frequency. But it's part of the journey, and it's an exciting journey. So 10 years hopefully is just the beginning of what we're going to do ultimately. And I'm really excited about that. So it feels great, to answer your question directly. And it feels great because we have a great team, we have great customers, we work in a very robust industry, global industry. And I think, it's really, I don't come from the hospitality industry, but one of the things and characteristics I really loved about the hospitality world when I started learning about it is how passionate people are about it. And that's just fun. So 10 years, 20 years, I'm excited about the future. I'm excited about where we are. And I think it's going to be a great opportunity for the company.
So this might be considered the softest of softball questions, but you and I were talking a few days ago, just to kind of a meet and greet, and we spent a disproportionate amount of time talking about music and guitars, because it turns out, are a guitar nut, which many people might not know. The room is there behind you, does have many guitars in there. So the question is, to finish us off then, David, if you had to compare Duetto to a guitar, what type of guitar would it be?
Well, so
You're looking very serious now.
Hey, it was a soft question, but it's not an easy one. So I'm a bass player, so I'll try to make this easy for everyone to understand. But when I think about guitars and bass guitars, I look at the classics, the things that people really associate. I love rock and roll. I really like heavy metal. But if you think about like the guitars that people associate with popular music, Fender Stratocaster, Fender Telecaster, or a Fender precision bass or a jazz bass. Those are sort of the foundations of electric guitars. And I would say now in our 10th year, I think we're a combination of, those wonderful foundational instruments that kind of just bring so many, great memories and images. You think of Jimi Hendrix with his Stratocaster, or Stevie Ray Vaughan with his Stratocaster. Those images, but those are rock solid instruments, and I think that's where we are as a company. We're rock solid, and we're really kind of doing the right things, putting one foot in front of the other, and step by step, making this a better and better company. But I would also say, given our unique take on revenue management, that my personal collection contains some guitars that people haven't heard of that are very unique, where I custom designed them, had them made for me, and have a lot of unique characteristics. And I would say that's very much Duetto. That's open pricing. That's thinking about how to do revenue management in a unique way that's not the norm in the industry. And I would say we're a combination of both things, really being able to customize, your instrument to meet your unique needs, but also have a very strong foundation.
That's a very, very good answer. So it's almost rehearsed. So if we had more time, David, I'd ask you to give us a couple of riffs on the fret there, but we don't, sadly. So David Woolenberg, CEO of Duetto, thank you very much for the discussion, and stay well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Thanks for having me.